Hello everyone, this is Crota giving a shoutcast between oGs's J versus IM's MVP here on Crossfire. We have oGs O or J spawning as the red Zerg on the top right hand side of the map. Meanwhile, on the bottom left hand side, we have IM's MVP spawning as the blue Terran. So this is going to be Terran versus Zerg. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been saying I've been casting a lot of Terran versus Zerg recently. Yes, that is the case. I've just been finding a lot more Terran versus Zerg, and also on top of that, some of the other replays that are being suggested to me are from old patches like 132 and 133. So I don't know if they just got made public, but then again, I want to keep up with the metagame, as StarCraft 2 is one of those games where the gameplay is also determined by how players play and what strategies they like to try and execute. You can see a front door now being built over here by MVP. He will be most likely following up with a supply depot in just a moment. We should be getting a drone scout now making its way out. Yes, a 14 drone scout making its way out in order to determine whether or not it will be a double racks pressure, or if a supply depot could be placed out and perhaps another command center built, or for that gas. That is all very, very important coming in as a Terran player. Are we going to get a refinery? Yes, we are. There it is. It is now being placed down. That drone wave will be able to slip by in just a moment. Slipping by, being able to gain some sight, and figuring out that there is going to be a rather long tech game. As that SCV is now taking some damage, all he wants to do is do his job, but unfortunately that drone does not like it when that SCV is now currently doing his job. You can see the drone now just wandering around, taking a little bit of damage, not too much, as the barracks will now be completed in just a moment. That one poor SCV will not have to take any more damage from that one particular drone, as a Marine is now being trained. So it looks like an SCV now moving out will be making its way across the map. We'll quickly see a hatchery has just been placed down following a spawning pool. So 60 seconds after that, or about 50 seconds after that spawning pool was placed down, the hatchery was started, and now you can see an extractor is also being followed up as well. He knows that he can get gas, as there's not going to be any Marine pressure at all. And we should be getting the supply depot here. Not quite sure why the supply depot is actually a bit delayed. Oh, never mind, the supply depot being built down here, as we are now going into a factory, and we may be adding a reactor here instead. So a reactor here would allow for the double training of Hellions, and the reactor would also finish off that wall-in attempt. So very, very interesting play there, as we are now going into roaches. Roaches have become a much more commonplace occurrence against Terran now, as Terran for some reason have been moving away from Marauders and more into Hellions. So with a lot more Hellions coming out, Roaches are a very, very strong counter to that Hellion harass. Roaches do move very quickly, or fairly quickly, even before the Glio reconstitution on creep, and the fact that they have a range of 4 definitely helps them out. Hatchery is now completed. Most likely a queen will be trained there as well as soon as it is able, getting enough minerals, and there you go, as the Hellions the Marines now returning, as we are now going to be getting a factory out, and now also moving into a command center. So very, very heavy on minerals so far. 1 Hellion now trained, 2 Hellions now trained. Supply depot and SCV should be trained up as well. It will not be supply blocked. Perhaps a little bit more mineral locked, as I am MVP now sitting at 27/35, while J now sitting at 28/28. A Roach finally scampering about. No creep tumors down yet, so very curious as to what the long-term strategy will be. Metabolic boost has not been started, and now Jay has a number of options he can go. He can either try to go for a quick tier 2 into the layer, or he can try to perhaps get into that evolution chambers and get the missile and weapons upgrade started early on. The Marines were able to push back this Overlord from being able to get any serious scouting information. This command center nearly completed as well, currently only about 5 seconds away, as the Hellions taking a very roundabout path in order to perhaps get some scouting information, but the Roaches are already there, and there you go, the Roaches getting off some easy damage onto 1 Hellion. The Hellions are not going to be able to do very much at all, as we now see a transition into siege tanks and Marines. So those Hellions are more of a scouting Hellion than anything else. A Roach is now moving across, gonna use that sight advantage, but that Roach was able to shoot up onto that high ground. Even though the Roach, I'm not sure if I guess he was able to see, as he was halfway up that ramp. And now the Hellions, once again, just trying to split between the two locations, trying to get as much, or trying to hit without taking too much damage. As you can now see, the drones are also being transferred down here as well. You can see creep tumors are being spread across, and now creep tumors also being pushed back up onto that high ground. Perhaps one more creep tumor to connect the two bases, and then that creep tumor can do a U-turn and then start spreading itself over here. We are teching the tier 2, getting a Baneling's Nest. Command center is already upgraded to an orbital command. Marines are already on the low ground as well, as the siege tank still does not have siege tech just quite yet. It doesn't really need siege tech, as right now there are not enough roaches to really push this front door here. The siege tanks also fire much more quickly, and the roaches would just get hammered away by the siege tanks outside of siege mode until you are able to swarm with those roaches later. Marines and tanks now moving about, perhaps moving in a different direction, and will be able to perhaps get some sight and shut down this one particular roach here, denying some scouting information, as that roach may not be able to scamper away in time. It looks like the roach will be able to scamper away. It does spot it there. The roaches are now trying to run back, as banelings are now being added at just the right moment, and with the creep spread as strong as it is, Jay is going to have a very, very easy time. Excuse me, yeah, Jay's going to have a very, very easy time just shutting down all of these Marines with Banelings. So we'll see what's going to be happening here. And now finally backing off, the Hellions are now perhaps going to move back over to the front, get some damage as the Roaches now trying to push in, and as well, down goes one Hellion. As MVP realizes that he cannot stay here very, very long. The siege tanks still do not have siege tech. And now one Hellion here, activating that Zonaga Watchtower. Meanwhile, Jay does spot, or it does see that there is this one Hellion activating this Zonaga Watchtower here. And we'll see what's going to be happening. The siege tanks are now starting the siege. And this is a very, very nice position, as the siege tanks are very separated from each other. They will be able to cover each other as well. And that means that those Banelings are not going to be able to splash on top of those Marines nearly that easily, as we now see more and more Banelings being trained up. And this is where I still think a lot of Terran players are the weakest. Terran players really need to be able to start affording a Raven in order to clean up these creep tumors. Creep tumors give such a strong movement advantage to Banelings. You can see them, how fast they move, 3.25, almost as fast as a stimmed Marine, even without the movement speed upgrade. The movement speed upgrade just adding insult to injury there, as we can now see Jay establishing a high yield mineral expansion here. There is only one Vest, or two Vespene geysers, so this is pretty much a better return per drone, but that is it. Marines now down on the low ground as well. Roaches there, as both players try to sit back, relax, and figure out what they can do in the long run. But this hidden expansion by Jay may see a lot of minerals in just a moment. The Marines are now going to be in a bit of trouble, as they're going to get surrounded. They are going to be able to finish off two creep tumors, but that is it. So with only two creep tumors down, that is going to be a bit of a problem there, as we can see that one creep tumor will get shut down there. Zerglings do move very, very quickly on top of creep, even with that metabolic boost, almost moving at a speed of 7, slightly more, 6 something, as the siege tanks are now holding the Zelnaga towers, and missile turrets nearby would perhaps help even more, as Mutalisks are really the weakest factor here. So I am MVP, should be able to fend off this attack very, very easily. Gonna finish off another creep tumor, down it goes there, but we should be getting some Mutalisks into the air in just a moment. You can see a fair amount of gas. The Marines now pushing back, need to retreat, unable to do so, as the Banelings did not even need to detonate, and now drones transferring over here and now going to start to mine off of this particular set of mineral patches. We now see the Marines pushing their way forward. Down goes another creep tumor. Siege tanks are now sieging up in an even more forward position. That is a lot of siege tanks now. 7 siege tanks, 1 siege tank on the low ground. And these siege tanks will just be able to cover each other very easily. You can see how deep they go. Yeah, not all of the siege tanks right next to each other, cover and being very, very far back, will be able to detonate some of those Banelings, and then allowing the Marines to finish off those Mutalisks and those Zerglings as well. We can see a flock of Mutalisks now in the air, a rather small flock at this stage, only 5-6 Mutalisks in the air, as another Zergling just getting absolutely destroyed. There are a couple Marines nearby, And it looks like the Mutalisks are going to be able to quickly come in now and get some damage. No, as I mentioned before, no missile turret nearby. And one missile turret perhaps would have been able to deal a lot. As you can now see, I am MVP realizing that there is an expansion over there. The Marines are backing off. And a bit of damage was dealt. Army compositions, 3,500 versus 2,600. Slightly larger for the Terran army. As the production tab now shows more drones, Zerglings, and Mutalisks, more tanks, just endless production of units. But finally, level 1 weapons upgrade will be coming in just a moment. Down goes one of those spine crawlers there, as another spine crawler may be coming in as well. A Mutalisk able to finally push in, take down this one particular siege tank, as the Marines are unable to really offer that much protection at all. The missile turrets need to get nearby. Perhaps these SCVs will also be able to be some auto repair and heal up some of these, or repair some of those siege tanks, as well as an extractor will now get taken down. Missile turrets, a very forward position here, almost classic Brood War style, as siege tanks, Marines, bunkers, and missile turrets in a very forward advanced position. And now we can see Jay now trying to push his way over, will not be able to get that much damage in, as the Marines are now pushing in as well. The Marines gonna get some damage. They do need to back off, and they will be able to do so, and perhaps get some damage onto those banelings as well. The siege tanks are in a very nice position, gonna be able to start weakening those Zerglings rather quickly, as those siege tanks may decide to try to push forward in just a moment. The missile turret just a little bit too far away, as the Mutalisks now perhaps going to push some damage over here into the mineral line of MVP. MVP may not be ready for this. There is that one missile turret, but that missile turret will quickly get destroyed. And now this mineral line essentially has nothing to protect it except for a couple Marines. The Mutalisks able to flock and fly around once again, perhaps hitting this location here, and no missile turrets in the defensive posture. But meanwhile, trading bases, down goes one hatchery, as the Marines are able to just simply stim in and get in a lot of damage. The Mutalisks, however, going to be able to get even more damage, as the Marines are now flying or flocking over, running over to deal with those Mutalisks. So one base for one base and some SCVs so far. Not too much damage though. Taking a look at the worker kills, 9 versus 25. So MVP only losing 9 workers. Meanwhile, once again, Mutalisk coming back over. The missile turret is now on repair, going to be able to shut down more and more of those Mutalisks. Mutalisks finally flocking away, as the army composition so much larger for MVP. 5,200 versus 3,875. Mutalisks once again backing off, looking to try to regroup, as the siege tanks are going to get destroyed in transit. Down it goes another Marine, stimming straight into a flock of Mutalisks. The Mutalisks able to shut that down rather easily. And now the Mutalisks taking down more and more of those buildings, more and more of those buildings there, as the group of Marines now finally making their way over. The missile turret able to get some damage, but it looks like a new flock of Marines are going to, or a new group of Marines may be able to come and get more damage. Another missile turret getting even more damage on those Mutalisks. And those Mutalisks are now finally backing off once more. Both sides have rather very large armies, and there is not that many Marines here, so the Mutalisks may be able to come in, but there are a decent number of missile turrets as well. And that is really what is saving IM MVP so far throughout this matchup. These missile turrets making it very difficult for the Mutalisks to put pressure on any of these buildings. And now the siege tanks are going to start to slowly push in even further. Siege tanks now up on that high ground as well. A medevac now pulling back, and perhaps a Raven in order to clean up some of these creep tumors would be very beneficial. You can see a very large army from JJ on that far side. Roaches, Mutalisks, Banelings, and just trying to figure out when they can attack, as this large army of Marines, medevacs, and siege tanks are in a very defensive position. The Marines will be able to get in a lot of damage. 1-1 upgrades, and now going after the Queen. The Queen now taken down, but there is an engagement here. The Zerglings quickly shutting down. The Banelings now trying to push forward once more. The Marines may be able to get some damage here, but no, it is going to be perhaps a base trade in just a moment, as the Roaches and the Zerglings will be able to push in. The Mutalisks now fighting back against the rest of those Marines, but the Roaches were not there to engage just quite yet. The siege tanks are now in full retreat, trying to figure out if they can get some damage onto these Roaches and Banelings, and it looks like they will be able to siege up in time and finish off. And now Jay is in trouble. His army is about half the size. Mutalisks now fighting against the Marines. Banelings are nowhere nearby. The Banelings are trying to get into position. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to melt that many Marines at all. And I believe that the GG will be coming in. There it is. I am MVP taking game 1 in this series. Stay tuned for game 2.